Welcome to the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 11th of February 2022, and I am Horio.
I am Serbia.
And I'm your host, GK. In case you missed the headlines, here they are for you. We begin with the Daily Nation. 4 in 10 Kenyans can't pay house rent. The Standard, why Wanjigi could spoil Raila's party. The Star, Raila Ruto form campaign teams. And finally, The People Daily, why Azimio is rattling ODM. So, before we go into any of the headlines, I would like to remind the audience that we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines for you. We ask ourselves these 3 questions. Is the headline topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And finally, is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? So, before I even allow you guys to get in, I'm going to use my power as the host, my power of veto, to immediately toss the Daily Nation. I don't think it's relevant to talk about. I think it is extremely pessimistic. Negative, we can let it go. So the Daily Nation can
Tossing
go into the bin.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're left with 3 more. The Standard, why Wanjigi could spoil Raila's party. The Star, Raila Ruto form campaign teams. And finally, The People Daily, why Azimio is rattling ODM. So what do you guys think of the headlines?
Okay, so none of the headlines have really captured me. I look at them and I'm like, there's nothing here that, meets our criteria. Most of them are just, lazy. They're not topical, not relevant.
Alarmist.
Alarmist, exactly.
Like The People Daily is very alarmist.
Trying to cause internal wrangles. Chama iko imara. Azimio is not being rattling ODM.
So in my opinion, I can't see any headline that is winning today.
For the Standard, I think Wanjigi is just throwing tantrums for Nissan's value. He wants attention, which the Standard is clearly giving it to him. You just have to ask, does Wanjigi have shares in the Standard?
What I would say is, if ODM party was going to be destroyed, if Raila's party was going to be destroyed, I would be extremely surprised if it was Jimmy Wanjigi who did it. I would say that clearly. So that means no Standard, no People Daily. That leaves us with the Star. Are any of you okay with the Star?
Raila Ruto form campaign teams.
Nothing new. They're going to form their campaign teams. It's not like we didn't know that.
It's nothing new. So.
Okay, so we toss them all.
Toss all of them.
Okay, so we have no winning headlines. So let's go into our analysis. Serbia, why don't you kick off for us today?
As Professor Mutahi Ngunyi often says, the mountain waits until the last possible moment to choose their candidate. The mountain holds its cards close to its chest. As we draw closer to the elections, we are beginning to see an emerging contrast between the UDA and Azimio campaigns. This contrast is a clear indication that one is living in the future and the other is embittered by the past. So the question remains, who is best suited to win the support of Gema? Once upon a time, a father was wondering which son deserved his inheritance. He wanted to ensure that his estate would be left in order. And so he summoned his 3 sons. He gave them each an equal amount of money and asked them to use that money to buy something that can fill an entire room but was small enough to fit in their pockets. Whichever son was successful would receive the keys to the kingdom from their father. And so the sons went out to the market and bought their items. And one by one, they entered the father's bedroom in an attempt to woo him. The first son reached into his pocket and removed some pieces of yellow cloth. He then attempted to demonstrate how this yellow cloth could fill the room. He failed. The second son thought very hard and decided to buy straw. However, once again, he ran out of straw before filling the entire room. He barely scratched the surface. The third son thought long and hard and looked at the failures of his brothers, and then went into the market. When he returned, he only had one item. He entered his father's bedroom, and in seconds, his father granted him the keys to the kingdom. What did the son buy? A matchbox. He lit a match and the entire room was filled with light. The person holding the matchstick is Raila. And this is because he is offering Gema a real solution. And that solution rests in the Azimio la Umoja doctrine. The Azimio movement is premised on unity that goes beyond any ethnic alignment. And the sincerity of the Azimio philosophy is seen in the fact that Baba didn't even launch his political campaigns in his ethnic background, unlike the hustler kingpin. Meanwhile, the hustler's narrative is divisive and pits Kenyans against each other in the name of classism. And this doesn't encompass our national ideals nor steer the country towards any great end. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Raila is showing Gema that the inheritance will be safe in his hands.
The Bible tells us that there is a time for everything, a time to plant and a time to harvest. And the president reiterated these exact sentiments this week when he told us that there is a time for work and a time for politics. But the Tanga Tanga Brigade decided that politics will never end. Instead of working, they decided to take a shortcut and make noise. Instead of supporting the president, they insulted him on the top of vehicles. But now that the time for politics is upon us, their political fate is already sealed. The fortunes of the DP and UDA remind me of the story of a merchant and a donkey that thought it was very clever. There was once a famous salt seller. The seller would transport a bag full of salt using his donkey to the market every single day. On the way to the market, the donkey and the merchant would have to cross a rocky stream. One day, while on their usual journey, the donkey suddenly fell down the stream. And unfortunately, the bag of salt also fell into the water. Once that bag touched the water, the salt immediately dissolved. And hence, the bag became extremely light to carry for the donkey. In that moment, the donkey thought to itself, if I can fall into this water every single day, my load will always be very light. On the very next day, the donkey pretended to fall into the stream again, and again all the salt was dissolved into the stream. The donkey played the same trick every day for the next few days. But after some time, the seller came to understand the donkey's games. To teach this donkey a lesson, he devised a very clever scheme. The next day, instead of loading the usual bag of salt onto the back of the donkey, he loaded a bag full of cotton on the donkey's back. Unknowing of the merchant's scheme, the donkey reached the stream and tripped once again, hoping that the bag would become lighter. That did not happen. Once the bag of cotton touched that water, it immediately soaked up all the water it could and became 10 times heavier than before. In that moment, the donkey realized that it was caught, and the merchant then sold that donkey. This is the story of Ruto and his Tanga Tanga MPs. The president told them that the time had come to focus on development and legacy. But instead, thinking he was very clever, Ruto opted to take a shortcut and use the 5 years to stand on the top of cars and campaign. But now that the political season is upon us, President Uhuru Kenyatta has planted layers of damp cotton on the back of Ruto. With the Political Parties Act and the ANC partnership, Ruto is now suffering from a bout of political constipation. And he has no way out.
There was once a young man that encountered the same dog every day, twice a day. As the man would leave his house, the dog would approach him and start barking and growling at him for no good earthly reason. And on his way back home in the evening, the same thing would happen. The dog would aggress the man and growl at him. One day, the man was fed up of the harassment of the dog. He put his foot down and said to himself, I will carve the biggest cane that I can, and I'll teach this dog a lesson. The man spent the entire night carving the perfect cane to deal with the dog. In the morning, he decisively made his way to the gate. As he approached the gate, the dog spotted him and started to growl and bark. But at this time, the man stood his ground. As the dog got closer and closer, the man lifted his stick, and the dog, taken by surprise, opened his mouth. And in that moment, the man noticed something that he had never seen before. The dog had no teeth. Just like the toothless dog, William Ruto has been barking and growling in Gema for the last 4 years. he has been shouting at the top of his voice that Uhuru has done nothing. And Uhuru's attitude of silence and calm seemed to only embolden Ruto. Ruto barked and growled all the more because no one stopped him. Ruto increased speed by campaigning non-stop. He formed a party called UDA and then proceeded to do everything to ensure that the presidency would be in his pocket come 2022. Like the man in the story, Uhuru maintained his silence. But it seems like Ruto has misunderstood the president's silence. What William Ruto may seem to have forgotten is that politics is all about timing, and Uhuru is the master timer par excellence. While Ruto has been barking himself sore, Uhuru has been slowly carving away at his stick, getting ready to deal with Ruto come the right moment. And the way I see it is that the stick that will silence Ruto is Uhuru's legacy. Uhuru has constructed 11,700 kilometers of roads. He has issued 5.3 million title deeds and has made Kenya the leading African country with respect to household connections to electricity. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. The book on Uhuru's legacy is still under construction. And in the meantime, Ruto is holding a megaphone from the sunroof of some car, hoping it will amount to votes to land him in the house on the hill. But we can't blame him for trying. Back to our toothless dog. The image would be funny if it weren't sad. For Ruto to be described as being all bark and no bite is not a good thing for a politician. Now it is becoming increasingly known by everyone that his barking is just a distraction that says, if you can't convince them, confuse them. To William Ruto, therefore, we say, we reject the mindless confusion. You are barking up the wrong tree.
Well put, Horio. So, on a day when we didn't have any winning headline, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also on your TV screens. You'll find us on Pang, Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. But before we conclude, Serbia, do you have something that you'd like to tell the people?
Sure. So I'd like to leave you guys with a quote from Dwight D. Eisenhower, the 34th,
34th, okay.
President of the United States. In preparing for battle, I have always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable.
Ooh, very profound. Thank you very much for watching and have an amazing weekend.